Rain poured relentlessly that evening, turning the narrow streets into glistening rivers. Sarah Miller gripped the steering wheel of her old, beaten-up sedan, praying the car wouldn't break down tonight. She had just picked up her 6-year-old son, Ethan, from his after-school program and was rushing home before the storm worsened. Money had been tight ever since her husband walked out 2 years ago, vanishing without explanation. Sarah worked 2 jobs, cleaning offices in the mornings and waiting tables at a small diner in the evenings, but the bills never seemed to stop piling up. Every month felt like a battle for survival, and tonight, she had just enough cash to buy bread, milk, and Ethan's asthma medicine. As she drove past a quiet park, something caught her eye: a man lying on the wet ground near a bench. At first, she thought he was drunk, but something about the way his arm twitched made her heart race. She hit the brakes, parked on the roadside, and leapt out into the rain. "Sir? Are you okay?" she called, shaking his shoulder. The man was middle-aged, wearing a soaked business suit. His lips were pale, his breathing shallow. Sarah's instincts kicked in. She had once attended a first aid course when she worked as a receptionist years ago. "Ethan, stay in the car," she yelled, kneeling beside the stranger. She tilted his head back, checked his pulse. It was faint. Her heart hammered. She dialed 911 with trembling hands but realized the ambulance might take time in this weather. Every second mattered. "Hang on," she whispered and began chest compressions. Her knees sank into the mud, her clothes soaked, but she pressed harder, counting under her breath. After what felt like forever, the man gasped a weak, shuddering breath. Relief surged through Sarah just as the distant sound of sirens grew louder. When the paramedics arrived, they took over immediately. One of them turned to Sarah and said, "If you hadn't started CPR when you did, he might not have made it. You saved his life." Sarah nodded numbly, shivering in the rain. She didn't wait for thanks or questions, she simply gathered Ethan and drove away. 2 days later, Sarah was working at the diner when a sleek black car stopped outside. Out stepped a tall man in an expensive suit, followed by 2 assistants. He scanned the room, then walked straight toward her. "Sarah?" he asked, his voice deep but gentle. She froze, tray in hand. "Yes, do I know you?" He smiled. "You saved my life." It was the man from the park, now looking healthier, powerful, and important. "My name is Michael Carter," he continued, offering his hand. "I'm the CEO of Carter Industries." Sarah blinked. She had heard of the company. It was one of the biggest in the country, owning everything from factories to tech firms. "I came to thank you personally," he said, handing her an envelope. "This is just a small token of my gratitude." When Sarah opened it, her breath caught. Inside was a check for $5,000. "I can't accept this," she stammered. "It's not charity," he replied. "It's gratitude. You gave me another chance at life. Please." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes as she accepted it. That money could clear her debts, buy Ethan better medicine, maybe even fix her old car. But Michael wasn't done. "If you're willing," he said, "I'd like to meet you again and learn more about the woman who saved me." At first, Sarah hesitated. She had grown used to keeping her distance from strangers. Life had taught her that trusting the wrong people could destroy you. But Michael was persistent, kind, and surprisingly humble. Over the next few weeks, he visited the diner often, sitting at the corner table and talking with Sarah during her breaks. Slowly, Sarah found herself opening up, telling him about her struggles, her late nights, her dreams for Ethan. One evening, Michael said, "You're wasting your talent here. I need someone trustworthy to manage one of our small community outreach programs. It's not glamorous, but it pays well and has regular hours. Would you be interested?" Sarah was stunned. A stable job with benefits? It felt like a dream, but she also feared it might be too good to be true. "What if I fail?" she whispered. Michael smiled. "You didn't fail when my life was in your hands. Trust yourself, Sarah." But just as Sarah's life seemed to be turning around, trouble came knocking. Her landlord raised the rent, threatening to evict her if she couldn't pay the new amount. At work, some employees resented her for being favored by the CEO and tried to sabotage her efforts, spreading rumors that she had only gotten the job because of pity. And one night, as Sarah and Ethan were heading home, they were followed by a group of men who tried to snatch her handbag. Sarah fought back fiercely, managing to escape, but the fear lingered. Life still wasn't easy. But Sarah was no longer fighting alone. Michael seemed to be quietly watching over her, sometimes even sending security near her neighborhood after the attack. Sarah's new job was a blessing, but it was also overwhelming. For the first time in years, she wasn't just surviving, she was responsible for managing a small team, organizing charity events, and handling community projects funded by Carter Industries. At night, she often sat by the window, looking at Ethan sleeping peacefully, and whispered to herself, "I hope I'm doing the right thing." 3 months into the job, Sarah faced her biggest test yet. One of the community centers under her supervision reported that funds for a food distribution program had gone missing. Sarah was devastated. This program fed over 200 poor families every week. Some employees blamed her directly, whispering that she was too new to handle such responsibility. The local media even ran a small headline: "New program head under scrutiny, mismanagement suspected." Sarah felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. She knew she hadn't stolen anything, but the missing money was her responsibility. If she failed now, not only would she lose her job, those 200 families would go hungry. That night, she broke down in tears. Ethan hugged her and said softly, "Mom, you always tell me to never give up. Maybe you shouldn't either." His words lit a fire in Sarah's heart. She stayed up all night reviewing the center's accounts, calling suppliers, and checking invoices. By dawn, she discovered the truth: one of the suppliers had forged documents and taken double payments. Sarah gathered all the evidence and presented it directly to Michael. He listened carefully, then smiled with pride. "I knew you'd figure it out. You've done more than just clear your name, you've saved the program." He had the fraudulent supplier blacklisted and publicly praised Sarah at the next company meeting. For the first time in years, Sarah felt seen, not just as a struggling single mother, but as a capable, strong woman. One evening, Michael invited Sarah and Ethan to his private office. The room was quiet, filled with the soft glow of city lights from the tall windows. "Sarah," he began, his tone unusually serious, "when you saved me that night, you didn't know who I was. You didn't ask for anything in return. That kind of selflessness is rare." He walked over to a cabinet and pulled out a folder. Inside were documents that left Sarah speechless. "I've decided to create a new initiative, the Sarah Foundation, to support single mothers, widows, and struggling women like you once were. I want you to lead it." Sarah's hands trembled. "Me? But why me?" "Because you know their pain," Michael said gently. "You've lived it. And you have the courage to change lives." Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she nodded. The announcement made headlines across the country. CEO credits single mother for his new social initiative. The Sarah Foundation became a beacon of hope for women everywhere, offering them financial assistance, training, and childcare support so they could rebuild their lives. Sarah was no longer just a struggling mother, she was a symbol of resilience. People came to her for guidance, for encouragement, for inspiration. At the launch event, Michael addressed the crowd. "Months ago, I was lying on the ground, fighting for my life. This woman saved me, not just with her hands, but with her heart. Today, I am proud to say she is not just an employee of Carter Industries. She is its beating heart." The audience stood and applauded. Sarah held Ethan's hand, smiling through tears. Months later, Sarah stood outside a brand new community center built entirely under the Sarah Foundation's name. Children played inside, women attended training classes, and the air buzzed with hope. Ethan tugged at her sleeve. "Mom, we used to be the ones needing help. Now we're helping others." Sarah knelt and hugged him tightly. "Yes, sweetheart. And that's the greatest blessing we could ever have." She looked up at the sky, whispering a silent prayer of gratitude. Life hadn't given her an easy path, but it had given her the strength to walk it, and now, she was lighting the way for others. Sarah's story reminds us that sometimes, the smallest act of kindness, stopping your car in the rain, choosing to help a stranger, can set off a chain of miracles. She saved a man's life without expecting anything, but what she received was far greater: dignity, purpose, and the chance to change the world for others like her.